Real English for your daily life.
Master English together.
You slept in, you ordered food, you watched 3 episodes of something, and by Sunday night, you felt worse than Friday.
That hollow, heavy feeling, like you rested all day but somehow drained the battery even more.
This is Everyday English Podcast. I'm Sara.
And I'm Noah. This is a B1 level episode, perfect for intermediate learners. And if you're a beginner, you're absolutely welcome here too.
Today we're talking about something that sounds almost embarrassing to admit. You took a full day off and it made you more exhausted.
Which, by the way, is not a personal failure. There's actually a psychological explanation for why this happens, and it changes everything once you understand it.
Quick question before we dive in, and answer honestly. When you had your last day off, what did you spend most of it doing? Option A, scrolling your phone or watching something. Option B, doing something with your hands, cooking, walking, building something. Drop A or B in the comments right now. 3 seconds, go.
We're guessing most of you said A, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's what feels natural. But here's the thing. It might be exactly why you're still tired.
In this episode, we're going to look at what psychologists actually say real rest looks like, and it's probably not what you think.
There's a theory, a real one, from a German psychologist that explains why scrolling and watching shows can't give your brain what it actually needs. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unsee it.
We've also got 2 tiny zero-pressure things you can try this weekend. Not a whole new routine, just 2 small shifts.
And stay with us until the end. We've got our word tour coming up with 5 expressions that are genuinely useful for talking about rest, exhaustion, and mental recovery in natural English.
We're also guessing that right now, you might be listening to this while doing something else entirely, commuting, washing dishes, pretending to work.
Totally valid. We're glad you're here either way.
And later, we'll give you one small ritual that takes under 2 minutes and actually signals to your brain that it's time to stop. But first, let's talk about why your days off aren't working. Okay, so let me paint a picture. It's Saturday morning. Your alarm doesn't go off. You wake up naturally around 9, maybe 9:30.
Already sounds like a dream.
You lie there for a bit, feeling good about yourself. No meetings, no deadlines. The whole day is yours.
And then, you pick up your phone.
Obviously, because what else do you do in the first 30 seconds of being awake?
You check the news. You scroll through some videos. You reply to a few messages. And before you know it, it's 11:15.
And here's the thing. You don't feel refreshed. You feel a little foggy, a little worn out, actually, even though you just woke up.
That word, worn out, is so accurate for this feeling. Not dramatically exhausted, just flat. Like a phone that's been plugged in all night but somehow only charged to 40%.
And you think, okay, I just need to properly relax. So you order food, you find something to watch, you settle into the sofa. You're going to unwind properly this time.
But here's where it gets interesting. You're trying to unwind, and that's the right instinct. But the method isn't actually doing what you think it's doing.
Because unwinding isn't just about being still. It's not just about doing nothing. Your brain has a very specific set of needs when it comes to actual recovery, and lying on the sofa watching a thriller is not meeting those needs.
Especially not a thriller. Your heart rate is up. You're emotionally invested. You're basically working just for entertainment.
Which is why you finish a 4-episode binge and feel somehow more tense than when you started.
I've been there. You finish the last episode, it's 9 p.m., and you realize you've been on autopilot for 6 hours. You didn't choose any of it consciously. You just kept pressing play.
On autopilot. That phrase is so important here because that's exactly what happens. You're not really present, you're not really resting, you're just running on a kind of low-level automatic mode. Your body is still, your brain is not.
And the problem with being on autopilot during your rest time is that you never actually give your nervous system permission to stop. It stays in this low-grade alert state the whole time.
Which brings us to the psychology behind all of this. And this is where it gets genuinely fascinating.
There's a German psychologist named Sabine Sonnentag, and she spent years studying why some people come back from weekends feeling genuinely restored, while others come back feeling like they never left the office.
And what she found was that real rest, the kind that actually recharges you, isn't about the quantity of time you take off. It's about the quality of what happens in that time.
She developed something called Psychological Detachment Theory, and the core idea is this. In order to truly recharge, your brain needs to fully detach from work. Not just physically leave the office, but mentally disconnect from work-related thoughts, worries, and responsibilities.
And most of us never actually do that. We leave the building, but we bring the building with us.
You're watching a show, but you're also half thinking about that email you didn't send, or that comment your manager made on Thursday, or the thing you have to do first thing Monday morning.
And your brain can't recharge when it's still running those background processes. It's like trying to charge your phone while 20 apps are open and the screen is at full brightness.
Sonnentag identified 4 conditions that real rest needs to satisfy. The first and most critical is detachment, actually stepping away mentally from work, not just physically.
The second is relaxation, which sounds obvious, but it means low stimulation, low demand activities, not a thriller, not doom scrolling, something genuinely calm.
The third is mastery, doing something that gives you a small sense of accomplishment or skill, cooking a new recipe, finishing a puzzle, fixing something around the house.
And the fourth is control, choosing how you spend your time rather than just defaulting to whatever's easiest or most available.
And here's the brutal truth about scrolling and streaming. They fail on almost all 4 counts. They don't help you detach because the content keeps your brain stimulated and alert. They're not truly relaxing because your nervous system stays activated. They don't give you mastery. You're consuming, not creating or doing. And most of the time, you're not really choosing. You're just going along with the algorithm.
Which is why you can spend 8 hours doing nothing and still feel completely worn out by the end of it. You weren't resting. You were just pausing.
There's a difference between pausing and actually recovering. A paused video is still loaded. It's still taking up memory. It hasn't gone anywhere.
And that's what your brain is like after a day of passive screen time. It's paused, not powered down. It hasn't had the chance to actually process, clear out, and reset.
I think about my own weekends and, honestly, I recognize this pattern completely. I'd finish a week feeling stretched thin, spend Saturday on the sofa, and wake up Sunday feeling almost guilty, like I'd wasted the one day I had to recover.
That guilt is its own kind of exhaustion, isn't it? You're tired, and then you're tired about being tired.
Exactly. And the worst part is that you start to wonder if something's wrong with you. Like, why can't I just relax properly? Why do I always feel this way?
But it's not a personal flaw. It's a mismatch between what your brain actually needs and what modern life keeps offering as a substitute for rest.
Screens are designed to keep you engaged. They're built to prevent detachment. Every notification, every autoplay, every recommendation, it's all engineered to keep your brain just alert enough to stay watching.
So you're not weak for falling into this pattern. You're just up against a very well-designed system.
And by the way, there's a phrase for that feeling of going through your day without really being present, just moving from one thing to the next without conscious choice. It's called being on autopilot. We'll break that one down properly in our word tour later.
But the good news, and there is genuinely good news here, is that once you understand what your brain actually needs, the fix is surprisingly small. You don't need a digital detox retreat. You don't need to throw your phone into the sea.
Although honestly, some days.
Some days, yes. But practically speaking, 2 small changes. That's it. And we'll get into those in just a moment. So, here's what I actually tried. And I want to be honest, I was skeptical at first.
What did you try?
The first thing is what I now call a detachment ritual. Before I start my rest time, I do one small physical action to signal to my brain that work is over. For me, it's changing into different clothes and making a cup of tea. That's it.
And that actually works? It sounds almost too simple.
I know, but the idea is that your brain learns to associate that specific action with switching modes. It's like a mental full stop at the end of a sentence. Without it, your thoughts just keep running into the next paragraph.
But wait, I want to push back on this a little. Because I think a lot of people would say, I already have rituals. I make coffee, I sit on the sofa, I open Netflix. That's my wind-down routine. Why isn't that working?
That's a really fair challenge, and the difference is this. A detachment ritual has to involve a moment of stillness before the stimulation starts, not going directly from work mode into screen mode. There needs to be a gap. Even 2 minutes of standing on the balcony or sitting quietly with your tea before you turn anything on.
But honestly, Sara, 2 minutes of standing outside isn't going to fix a week of burnout. That feels like putting a plaster on something that needs actual treatment.
You're right that it won't fix burnout on its own, but that's not what it's trying to do. It's not a cure, it's a switch. It's the difference between your brain staying in low-grade work mode all weekend versus actually getting permission to stop. And that permission compounds over time.
Okay, I'll accept that. But here's my second concern. The second step you mentioned is adding something hands-on to your rest time. Cooking, puzzles, tidying. And I genuinely struggle with this one because when I'm exhausted, the last thing I want is another task, even a small one.
That resistance is so real, and I felt exactly the same way. But here's the reframe. It's not a task in the way work is a task. There's no deadline. No one's evaluating you. You're not doing it for an outcome. You're doing it because the process itself is what recharges you.
But isn't that just adding more things to do on your day off? I already feel guilty about not being productive enough. Now I have to be productively resting too.
That's actually the most important thing to untangle here. This isn't about productivity, it's about the type of attention your brain uses. Scrolling and watching use what psychologists call directed attention. Your brain is constantly processing new information, making micro decisions, staying alert. It's exhausting even when it feels passive.
And hands-on activities are different.
Completely different. Something like doing a puzzle or going for a walk uses what's called involuntary attention. Your brain can wander, process, and reset in the background while your hands are occupied. It's genuinely restorative in a way that screens aren't.
Okay, and I'm gonna keep pushing here. What about people who genuinely love watching films? who find it deeply meaningful and emotionally nourishing. Are you saying that's not real rest?
No, I'm not saying that at all. Watching something you've consciously chosen, that you're genuinely engaged with, that you then think about and talk about, that can absolutely be restorative. The problem isn't screens themselves, it's the autopilot mode. It's the passive, unconsidered consumption that goes on for hours without any real presence or choice.
So the issue is the how, not the what.
Exactly. One episode of something you love, that you actually chose, that you watch without also scrolling your phone. That's very different from 6 hours of autoplay because you couldn't find the energy to do anything else.
That distinction actually makes a lot of sense. It's about whether you're present in your rest or whether you've just checked out.
And that's the whole point of Sonnentag's theory. Real rest isn't about doing less. It's about being more intentional with the small window of recovery time you actually have.
I think what I'm taking from this is, it's not about overhauling your entire weekend. It's about 2 tiny moments of intention. One at the start, one in the middle.
That's it. A 2-minute ritual to detach. And one activity that lets your brain genuinely unwind without a screen. That's the whole prescription.
And if you try it and it doesn't work, we can revisit this in the comments.
Deal. If you subscribe first.
Okay, so we've talked about why your rest days aren't working, and 2 small things that can actually change that.
And throughout this whole conversation, we've been using some really specific words that native speakers actually use when they talk about exhaustion and recovery.
So now it's time for our word tour. 5 expressions, all from today's episode.
Let's break them down, one by one. All right, let's look at the actual words we used today. Start with detach. This one came up when we talked about Sonnentag's theory, psychological detachment.
Right, and detach is such a useful verb because it's not just about physical distance, it's about mentally disconnecting from something. You can leave the office but still not detach from work thoughts.
Exactly, I need to detach from my emails for the weekend. Or, it's hard to detach when your boss keeps messaging you.
That second one is painfully accurate.
The opposite of detach would be staying attached, mentally hooked to something even when you're not physically there, and that's the whole problem we've been discussing.
Which brings us perfectly to recharge. We use this word a lot today. Your brain needs to recharge. You can't recharge if you're on autopilot.
Recharge is one of those words that everyone understands because of phones and batteries, but it works beautifully for people too. I need this weekend to properly recharge. Or, I didn't recharge at all. I feel worse than before.
And the key thing about recharge is that it implies you were drained first. You don't recharge something that's already full. So when you say, I need to recharge, you're acknowledging that you've been running on empty.
Which is such a common feeling, and that connects directly to our next phrase, worn out. This is how you feel when you haven't recharged properly.
Worn out is different from just tired. Tired is, you need sleep. Worn out is deeper. It's like you've been used up. Stretched too thin for too long.
I'm completely worn out. Or, by Sunday night, I felt more worn out than I did on Friday. That was the exact feeling we described at the start of this episode.
And worn out has this physical quality to it, doesn't it? Like a piece of fabric that's been washed too many times. It's still there, but it's thinner, weaker.
That's such a good image. And the thing you're supposed to do when you're worn out is unwind. But as we talked about, unwinding isn't as simple as it sounds.
Unwind is a beautiful word. Literally, it means to undo something that's been wound up tight, like a spring or a rope. And that's exactly what it feels like mentally. You've been wound tight all week and you need to let that tension go.
I just want to unwind after work. Or, I thought watching TV would help me unwind, but it didn't. That second sentence is the whole problem, isn't it?
It really is, because unwinding requires actual release, not just distraction.
And that brings us to the last phrase, on autopilot. This one is so important because it describes the state most of us are in during our so-called rest time.
On autopilot means you're going through the motions without conscious thought or choice. Like a plane on autopilot, it's still flying, but no one's actively steering.
I spent the whole weekend on autopilot. Or, I realized I'd been scrolling on autopilot for 2 hours. It's that numb, disconnected feeling where you're doing something but not really present.
And the scary thing about autopilot is that it feels like rest because you're not making decisions. But your brain is still running, still processing, still alert.
Which is why you can spend a whole day on autopilot and end up more exhausted than when you started. You never actually gave yourself permission to stop.
So those are our 5 expressions. Detach, mentally disconnect, recharge, restore your energy, worn out, deeply exhausted, unwind, release tension, on autopilot, going through motions without presence.
And all 5 of them are connected to this idea that real rest isn't passive. It's intentional. It requires you to actually step away, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too.
Which is harder than it sounds in a world designed to keep you half engaged all the time.
But now you've got the language to talk about it. And sometimes just naming the problem is the first step to solving it. So here's what we covered today. You're not broken. You're not unusually bad at resting. You've just been using the wrong tools for the job.
Sabine Sonnentag's Psychological Detachment Theory tells us that real rest needs 4 things: detachment, relaxation, mastery, and control. And most of what we default to on our days off satisfies none of them.
So this week, try just 2 things. First, create a small detachment ritual before your rest time starts. Change your clothes. Make tea. Stand outside for 2 minutes. Something physical that tells your brain work is done.
And second, add one hands-on activity to your weekend. Something without a screen. Cooking, walking, tidying, a puzzle. Anything that lets your mind wander while your hands are busy.
That's it. You don't need a whole new lifestyle. Just 2 small moments of intention, and your nervous system will actually get the signal it's been waiting for.
Honestly, the first time I tried the detachment ritual, I felt a little silly standing on my balcony for 2 minutes doing nothing. And then I noticed. I actually felt different walking back inside.
That's the thing about small rituals. They feel almost too simple to work until they do.
And if you want to go deeper on this, we're planning an episode on why mornings feel so hard even after a full night's sleep. Same idea, different angle. So stay tuned for that one.
Before you go, we want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, what does your current wind-down routine actually look like? And after today, do you think it's really helping you recharge?
We read every single comment, genuinely, and we love hearing how these episodes land for you.
Thanks so much for spending this time with us. Take care of yourself this weekend, properly this time.
See you in the next one.